and then rock. You've almost worked. Hi, my name is Jill and welcome to my kitchen. Today we're going to look at two basic knife skills, one to cut onions, one to cut green peppers, that you can do quickly, easily and efficiently. We're going to be making Johnny Marzetti casserole. It's basically a wonderful combination of ground beef, elbow macaroni, a little bit of tomato sauce and cheddar cheese. One of my kids' favorites, and I've always found it to be a big hit. So let's get right to it. I've pulled everything out ahead of time to make it a little bit easier. Basically, we have ground beef, tomato sauce, cheese, an onion, some macaroni, salt, pepper, plus or minus a green pepper and mushrooms, depending on whether or not your kids like them. The first thing we're going to do is fill a large pot with water and put it on the boil so that we can cook the macaroni, because we're going to need that later. So I've filled the pot with water. Next thing we're going to do is pop the oven on, because it needs to go in when we're all done this at 350 for about half an hour. First thing that we need to look at when it comes to knife skills is how to hold your knife. First thing you want to do is, it's not way back on the handle. It's actually snug it right up so that your finger is over top of the blade. That gives you the most control of the knife. When it comes to cutting, what you want to remember is stability is key. So the first thing we're going to do is cut off the top of the onion. Not the blossom end, but the top. Then we're going to cut it in half so that now we're going to have a stable work surface to work on. So let's peel this onion. Once you've got the onion peeled, we're going to start working on one half and then the other half. What you want to do is, using the blossom end as your guide, you start and create longitudinal cuts into the onion all the way around it, just following the curve of the onion. You want to make sure these longitudinal cuts are about as wide as you want the end size of the pieces of onion to be. So if you wanted really, really thin ones, you'd do it really, really thinly, or for us, it's just a moderate size. All the way around, just following it all around. Then, what you want to do is you want to curve your fingers in so that your nails are touching the onion and you're not sticking your fingers well out. You want to make sure you don't get any little bits of fingers in the cutting. And you simply start to cut. Now, when you cut, leave the tip of your knife down, and you want to cut and swing forward, cut and rock, and then pull back, leaving the tip of your knife down and rock down. Always rock and rock a little bit forward, and that will allow the onion to cut all the way through. Then you take your next onion and do exactly the same thing. Simply cut longitudinally. And then rock. Once you get good at it, it'll happen quite quickly. The next thing we're going to do is green pepper. My family happens to like green pepper, so I'm going to use it. If yours does and you have it, great. If it doesn't, it's not a big deal. So you take and you cut off the end, and then you can pop out the center core. We'll cut that in a minute. And then all you do is reach in and pull out the seeds, and it all comes out as one nice little unit. And it's done. Then, to make this easy, cut the end off, slice it down, and now you can unroll it. And suddenly it becomes a whole lot easier to cut, because now it's just long stripes. Now again, keep your fingers back so you don't end up with fingers in your green pepper. And now you simply can take this, line it up, and your peppers are cut. So again, the key is to make sure that everything is stable when you're working on it. Now you've got these two little end bits and you don't want to waste those, so we just slice those into pieces. Now you notice whenever I'm doing anything with the knife, the key is to rock. So rock down, rock down, rock down. And that's the key. It's that motion of rocking down that allows it to cut all the way through. So that's all the chopping we have to do. We're ready to start cooking. Okay, so to put this casserole together, it's just a matter of a few steps. We're going to turn the heat on under a frying pan. Doesn't have to be a nonstick. I happen to have a nonstick, so I'm using it, but it can be a regular frying pan. And you need a little bit of oil, whatever kind of oil you have. I have like a spray oil, so I'm using that. And we just let that heat up a bit. So what we're going to do now is we're just going to fry up the onions and green peppers, add the ground beef, and then assemble everything from there. So let's add the onions and green peppers. When you cook the onions, they go soft and you're actually caramelizing the sugars in the onions. If you cook them too fast and they go really dark brown, you've almost burnt them. So the key is to use your heat at about medium and just have a little patience. They'll cook up within about 5 minutes. So we'll just grate up this cheese, and like I said, this is a great thing for the kids to do if they're old enough to handle a few sharp objects and can keep their fingers back so you don't end up with a whole bunch of little fingers in your grated cheese. And there we go, that's all the cheese. We're just looking now at the onions. They're frying up nicely. They're getting a little brown and soft, just the way we want them to be. I see that our water is boiling for our macaroni, so we're going to add the macaroni. About 3/4 of a box of macaroni is probably good for about a pound of ground beef. So we'll pour that right in there, and we'll let that cook up. Now our onions are cooked enough that we can add the ground beef. So just toss in your ground beef and break it up a bit. And we'll just cook that all together. And all you want to do is make sure that the meat is well browned. Now your macaroni will take about 8 minutes or so to cook, so you want to keep a half eye on your macaroni and set a timer for it. Now while we wait for that to cook, we'll prep our pan. I'm using what would this be? This would be about an 8 by 12 or so. You can use a 9 by 9. You can use a cake pan if you've got a cake pan, or if you've got a Casserole kind of crockery one, you can use that too. Doesn't really matter. It just needs to be about 1.5 inches deep or so, just enough to be able to take what you've got. So I'm just going to grease that a little bit, make it a little bit easier to clean up after the fact, and it will be ready to go. Let's give our pasta a wee bit of a stir. Always good once you've dumped it in to give it a quick stir so that it doesn't stick to the bottom and it cooks more evenly. As you can see, even though the hamburger was sort of half frozen, it cooks quickly. So I don't get too fussed about if I've forgotten to take stuff out of the freezer and it's not quite fully thawed. I find that a little bit of patience and it all comes together well. There we go. The ground beef is ready. Now, if this was regular ground beef, I would want to drain it a little bit, but this is lean, so there's not really anything to drain here, so it's not necessary. But with regular ground beef, you'll probably want to take it off the heat and just drain it a little bit. While we wait for our pasta, we'll add a little bit of salt, so about a teaspoon of salt, and a nice either shake or grind of black pepper, depending on whether you've got a shaker or a grinder. You can use either. And then we're also going to use a can. This is a 14-ounce can or a 398 ml can of tomato sauce, and we're just going to pour that into the meat. And give that a stir around so it can get to know itself. Okay, so our macaroni is ready, so we're just going to drain that, and then we'll be ready to put it all together. We've got our drained pasta, we've got our ground beef already, and we've got our cheese. So we're just going to assemble it all together. Basically, toss the pasta into the ground beef, or the ground beef into the pasta, depending on the size of your pots in your frying pan. There we go. And then you add about 3/4 of your cheese. You're going to keep enough to sprinkle over the top. And other than that, you put the rest in this. And you just stir it till it's all combined. There we go. All stirred together. Now all we need to do is put it in our casserole dish. Pat it down nicely, get it all nice and level. And then you just want to sprinkle the cheese that you had remaining over top. We're going to pop it in the oven and let it get all nice and bubbly. Make a nice salad and we're ready to serve. We'll pop this in the oven now and take a look at it in about 20 minutes when it's done. So our timer has just gone off. And there you have it. Johnny Marzetti casserole serves 4 easily, probably 6. So from my house to yours, have a wonderful evening.